Hi, my name is Dana Sardano, and this is the Ubuntu Room. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for joining me. The Ubuntu Room is a place where we discuss all things personal empowerment, all things spiritual development, and everything that falls in between. It's where we recognize that the power is in our hands to create the lives that we desire. And personal empowerment and spiritual development are very much intertwined. And each of us on our own journey of self-discovery falls somewhere on that spectrum. My hope is by having these conversations, maybe I meet you where you fall, and perhaps we travel together. So, today we are talking root chakra. Now, last week we did the whole how do you do on the practicality of the chakra system, and we talked about the balances and imbalances and how we reconcile those balances. But today I really want to zone in on the root, because the root is truly the foundation of who we are. Everything that we experience in our lives, in our exterior world, are a response to our interior world, and that begins with the root chakra. Now, the root chakra, some of the aspects of self that correlate with the root chakra are our sense of safety, security, grounding, stability, accountability, health and wellness in our physicality, in our bodies. And the greatest age of resonance of the root chakra is between 0 and 7 years old. So essentially, anything that has happened to us between the ages of 0 and 7, whether it's positive, good, bad, or ugly, creates beliefs and patterns that we perpetuate in our lives. So if we have imbalances in our lives, basically if we have things in our lives that we don't care for, we can likely trace it back to those years. And if not those root chakra years, definitely the sacral chakra years, which is the next stage of development, 7 to 14. But we can trace it back. So it's really, really important that we take the time to look. So just a quick disclaimer, there are a billion ways to skin this chakra cat, right? There are a lot of ways to look at it. Some people like to align their chakras by doing yoga, or they have Reiki healing, or they work with crystals, or meditation, or hypnosis, or any of those things that help align that energy. But my feeling is if we can really take the time to look at the root of what caused it, we can align it for good. So that's really how I look at things. So again, when we go back to the root, that's really ground zero for most of our behaviors and patterns. And just to give you a for instance of what that's looked like in my life, story time with Dana Sardano. I'm going to tell you a story. So my brother and I talk about this extensively in some of my books, but we've always had a strained relationship. And my mother in my relationship has always been tenuous at best. So that behavioral pattern has been there. So throughout my life, I have, like I said, my brother, if I had to categorize it, I would say he's been abusive. He's been physically and emotionally abusive. It's never really been a positive relationship. Even as he got a little bit older, he allowed his friends to mistreat me. And his relationship with my mother, again, this is all put water under the bridge. I'm just giving you the facts, ma'am, the facts. But his relationship with my mother, he had been like the golden child. So that really was just how those relationships looked. But about 5-6 years ago, I had a memory. Now, I had been doing some extensive healing work on myself for at least the last decade or so, but about 5-6 years ago in meditation, I got this memory, and it came to me like a whisper or like an impression, but it was clearly a memory of mine when I was in the crib. And I was crying. I was trying to get out. I had to be under a year old, right? And I was trying, I was vying for attention. And my brother and mother came in the room. And my brother, who had to be about 4 years old at the time, walked over to the crib and he grabbed me by the wrists and he smacked me in order to stifle my cries. Now, he was 4. He didn't know. He was just trying to shut me up. So there was no problem there. However, my mother, who was in the room, did not reprimand him. There was no consequence for the behavior. It was allowed. And that was ground zero, set the stage for the, no, I didn't know this at the time, obviously, this came many years later, but set the stage for my beliefs that I deserved it, or that I had to work harder to be loved, or all of those beliefs that created that pattern of abuse by others. And again, like I mentioned, my relationship with my brother, my relationship, that triangle between my brother, myself, and my mother, like that had continued throughout my life. Fast forward to 2014, I was 43 years old, I was getting married, and I had a little tiff with my mother prior to the wedding, a couple months prior to the wedding, and turned into Chernobyl. It was like a thing. We'll tell the story another day, but my mother wound up not going to my wedding. It was tragic. It was a really, really difficult time in my life. But my mother basically gave my brother the permission slip. She let him off the chain to let me have it. Now, I don't know how that went down, but it was sanctioned by my mother. And my brother went off on, like, let's just say, he came at me, bruh. Like, it was bad. And at the time, I was like in fetal, like just a mess, just trying to figure out what I did to deserve this, how I could have done things differently, and blamed myself. At the time, because I didn't understand all of these things about myself, I didn't understand where it came from. I just knew it always sucked with my brother and my mother. It was very, very painful. It was probably, that experience was probably the first real domino of any intensive healing work that I had done on myself. But if I had known then what I know now, it might have been a more tolerable, it probably wouldn't have happened because I would have been way ahead of it. But again, I digress. Moving forward, doing this work really helped me understand that I could change these patterns with this understanding about myself. So just to give you, again, just a little bit more insight on it, because the root chakra is about safety, security, grounding, I was terribly emotionally insecure in my relationships, and it showed itself. However, my grounding, my stability, that was pretty tight because I had clear consequences in my house. I had, the expectations that were met. I had a stable home, regardless of all of its dysfunction, but I had a stable home. So I carried my sense of grounding, my sense of stability into jobs, into social relationships. Now, conversely, and again, I'm just trying to give you a couple more pieces of this. Conversely, I have an old friend who, her mother was married, I think 3 times before this girl turned 8 years old. She had moved like 6 or 7 times. She had no stability in her home. She's constantly having to rebuild new relationships. She was kind of treated like an accessory or a prop, carried from place to place like she didn't matter. And she grew up with tremendous insecurity that manifested in desperation and clinginess in relationships. She was not able to have any job stability, any financial stability, because of her sense of instability. So she carried it along. So like I mentioned earlier, there's a billion ways to skin this cat. So just because all of these aspects represent the root chakra, it doesn't mean every aspect of your life has to be a mess. So I'm giving you homework with this understanding. And for those of you who are paying attention from last week, I told you to bring your notebooks. So take out your pen, take out a piece of paper, take out your notebook, and I want you to write down 4 things. I don't want you to examine it yet. You need this for introspection, but I want you to write down a few things. The first thing is I want you to think of something in your life currently that brings you discontentment. It could be anything. Now, just as an example, let's just say, I'm always fighting with my husband. We're always bickering. He doesn't let me say what's on my mind. He shuts me down. He barks at me before I can get a little close to home, but he shuts me down before I can say what I want to say. And that brings me discontentment. Something like that. The second one, write this down. The second one is, what is your belief around this? So if I'm bickering with my husband and he shuts me down, well, I don't feel appreciated. I don't feel heard. Nobody listens to me. Nobody appreciates me. I'm constantly disrespected. The third one is I want you to think about other aspects of your life that repeat this pattern of behavior or the beliefs around it. It could be in the past, could be every boyfriend I had before shut me down and disrespected me. Or it could be, oh my God, wait a minute. I don't feel appreciated at work. My children are disrespectful. My friends don't listen to me, whatever it is. Then, and this is really the work, this is the introspection. Then I want you to really think about how far this goes back. Now, you may not find your ground zero crib experience. For me, that came much later. But what you'll do is you'll start recognizing this, again, pattern of behavior might have gone back to elementary school. And you might have a memory of something that happened. Start with that. And when you're able to look at that and recognize that from the adult perspective and remove yourself, it's almost like you're looking at somebody else. You can then look at it more rational and not carry the 1-year-olds, the 6-year-old, the elementary school person's mentality. And then you could start unraveling that knot. And what happens when you do that is you start to unravel this one knot. Oh yeah, I'm not appreciated. But then all of a sudden you'll see it over here in this experience in your life. You'll see it in your job. You'll see it with your children because you unraveled this knot. Start there and then start talking about the sound bowls and the yoga. And again, all that stuff is great, but really plucking things at the root, reestablishing your beliefs, reconciling your imbalances is truly what will help you align your chakras. Now, I have all sorts of fun stuff. I got my cards, I got questions in the books, I got different crystals that'll help with the root chakra. But for now, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to pass it to Freddie and Dawn because I know there's questions. Don't forget to do your homework. As always, thank you for joining me, and Ubuntu.
Oh my goodness.